The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. As Jesus came down from the mountain with Peter, James, and John, they approached the other disciples. They saw a large crowd around them and scribes arguing with them. Immediately on seeing him, the whole crowd was utterly amazed. They ran up to him and greeted him. He asked them, "What are you arguing about with them?" Someone from the crowd answered him, "Teacher, I have brought to you my son possessed by a mute spirit. Wherever he sees him, it throws him down. He foams at the mouth, grinds his teeth, and becomes rigid. I asked your disciple to drive it out, but they were not able to do so." He said to them in reply, "O faithless generation, how long will I be with you? How long will I endure you? Bring him here to me." They brought the boy to him, and when he saw him, the spirit immediately threw the boy into convulsions. As he fell to the ground, he began to roll around and foam at the mouth. Then he questioned his father, "How long has it been happening to him?" He replied, "Since childhood. He has often thrown him into fire and into water to kill him. But if you can do anything, have compassion on us and help us." Jesus said to him, "If you can, everything is possible to one who has faith." Then the boy's father cried out, "I do believe. Help my unbelief." Jesus, on seeing a crowd rapidly gathering, rebuked the unclean spirit and said to it, "Mute and deaf spirit, I command you, come out of him and never enter him again." Shouting and throwing the boy into convulsion, it came out. He began like a corpse, which caused many to say, "He is dead." But Jesus took him by hand, raised him, and he stood up. When he entered the house, his disciple asked him in private, "Why could we not drive the spirit out?" He said to them, "This kind can only come out through prayer." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise the Lord.
The apostles Peter and John have been on the Mount of Transfiguration. They experienced that wonderful moment when the Lord was shown to them as the Son of God. And they heard the Father in heaven giving credence and approval that he was the Son of God. But very quickly they brought back to reality when a father, concerned about his son who has been an epileptic for many, many years, bring them to the apostles. And they're unable to do anything about it. They cannot heal this kid. Why? Because their lack of faith. Their lack of faith. This is the first of 7 miracles that Mark mentions in his gospel. And in every time, it's always about faith. It's always about faith. And we all know what faith is. We walk by faith and not by sight. In other words, it's something outside of this world. It's not something we see. It's something unseen. That's what our faith is. Some people have great faith. Absolutely great faith. They have trust and faith in their God no matter what happens. That's not true of most of us. And so we always have to do what the apostles said to Jesus, increase our faith. They asked Jesus to increase their faith, even though they were with him 24/7. Yet they asked to have their faith increased. There's a wonderful message for all of us there, that we pray that very same thing today. Lord, increase our faith. Anybody here from Mexico this morning? You from Mexico? Well, you know today is a very important feast in your country, St. Christopher of Magallanes. The early of the last century, around in 1915, the government of Mexico instituted a new government that was ruthless, especially against the Catholic Church. Priests could not preach in public. The church couldn't own property. Priests were not allowed to vote, and they were not allowed to wear their clerical attire. It was a ruthless, ruthless campaign, and it continued for probably 40 years. In fact, I think I remember that it wasn't in the present regime, but during President Fox's regime, who was of Irish extraction, he was the first to pass a law whereby now priests would be allowed to wear their black suits in public, as recent as 20 years ago. So that gives you an idea of the kind of institution it was. It was ruthless. An organization called the Cristeros, Followers of Christ, whose motto was, "Long live Christ the King and the Virgin of Guadalupe." That was their motto. Thousands and thousands of Mexican men and women and children were murdered less than 100 years ago. So times don't change. They really don't. And we experience the very same thing in the Middle East this morning, where Christians are still murdered and prosecuted. So this morning we remember especially the people of Mexico, those people who come here to work, very often discriminated against, very often unjustly paid, as long as people from other parts of the world. So we pray this morning also for all those immigrant peoples.